I'm making migas this morning. It's one of my favorite things. We just finished a week of heirloom tomatoes, and this is a recipe that we didn't feature there, but I think is really nice in tomato season. It's good other times too. So I'm actually in my pajamas right now. I've got my cup of coffee. I'm about to make this, and we're gonna go through it pretty quickly, a little faster than I usually do. This is a dish that's made for leftovers. So it's called Migas, M-I-G-A-S. I was first introduced to it when Lucia, who works for me, is from Austin, and I was visiting Austin. Lucia told me places to go try, and a couple of them sold migas, which I had never heard of before. This was probably 8 or 10 years ago, and I just loved it, and then I tried to recreate it at home. And so this is really based on what I saw people doing with migas in Austin. Migas, there's a Spanish migas, which is made with stale bread. It's almost like croutons. And this version of migas is made with tortilla chips. And this is really a leftovers kind of meal. So you're supposed to have leftover stale tortilla chips. You're supposed to have leftover salsa. And I didn't have leftover salsa, so I just made this up fresh. But I did have leftover tortilla chips. And this is a recipe that you may have this with some leftover beans. It's a really easy recipe to throw together when you have leftovers in the fridge. It's a really, really yummy breakfast. But it's so delicious that it's worth preparing these things fresh just to make this. So I've got most of what I need prepared, which is different than the way we usually do these shows, but I wanted to, I was already making this and I thought I should share what we're doing. We have all these beautiful eggs coming from our chickens. You can see we're getting all different colors this year. And they just started laying, so the eggs are a little bit smaller than they'll be. So I'm just going to break some eggs, basically making scrambled eggs here. I want to get them really well mixed. So I want to do that to the point where there's no separation of the whites and the yellows. This is the same approach I would use when I make scrambled eggs. I put a little bit of salt in there. I put a little bit of ground pepper. Just seasoning those a little bit. And that's my egg. Now we're gonna get started over here. So I use olive oil for a lot of my cooking, but for this I would go with, this is a sunflower oil, so safflower oil, sunflower oil, peanut oil, any of those oils would be fine. Some neutral oil that can handle temperatures without a problem. So I've got a hot griddle here. Now you can do this in a cast iron pan, but you really need something that's well seasoned and non-stick. So don't try this recipe in a pan that you think things might stick to. It just really will not work. And now I'm going to take these are stale tortilla chips, and if you do this with fresh tortilla chips, it doesn't turn out as well. So you really want stale tortilla chips. And I'm just going to crunch these up. So these are now sort of frying in that oil a little bit. Alright, that's about as much as I can take. So I actually have enough to make migas another day. And you want to spread these out in a single layer. So the griddle is a really well seasoned griddle. Things are not going to stick to it. I have some oil on it. I probably put 1 or 2 tablespoons. Some of it fell off, but you want to make sure that there's like a consistent layer of oil on everything. You're not frying it in oil, like deep frying it, but you do want oil between the food and the cooking surface. And now you lay these out, these stale tortilla chips in like a single layer. And I'm just going to peek at them. So you see what's going to happen is they'll start to turn a little bit brown. I have some blue ones mixed in with the white ones. The blue are a lot harder to tell when they're getting to the right spot. But we're going to let these go for like a minute, 2 minutes. It doesn't go that long. And then what we're going to do next is we're going to pour the egg mixture on top of those tortilla chips. So the tortilla chips get toasty, then the egg mixture sort of makes them a little bit soggy, but they have like a soggy crunchiness, which I think is irresistible. And then we'll add some pico de gallo. So if you've not made this before, it's very, very simple. You just need tomatoes, some sort of pepper. I've got jalapeno from my garden in here, some onions. You can add a little bit of cilantro. This is just a very simple, fresh salsa. I've just diced up the tomatoes. I've diced up the onions and added a little bit of salt so it tastes yummy. And for this recipe, this is usually best when it's really fresh, but this recipe is made for leftovers. So if you have this from the night before, say you had tacos or something, or burritos the night before, that works great. Or even if you're using like a grocery store pico de gallo, that will work. Leftover from takeout will work. So you don't need it to be freshly made, even though this one is. So we're gonna come over here. I know this is getting close partly because I'm seeing the colors change, but I'm also hearing like it's not sizzling as much anymore. So this is about ready to go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to pour the egg mixture on top of this, and I'm going slowly. So I sort of want to use I don't want to lose all my eggs, and I sort of like the tortillas to act as like I don't know, it's like making cement. It's like the aggregate in there. Whoopsies, so now I just lost them. All right. Okay, so this is going really well now. Now, this griddle is nice and hot, so you can see those are cooking up really quickly. I'm going to go ahead and turn them so that they don't overcook on that bottom side. And now you can see why I wanted to have everything ready to go. I'm going to add in my salsa now. I'm going to reserve a little bit so we can have something fresh at the table. And so this salsa now is mixing in there a little bit with the eggs. All right, and I'm trying to get it spread out in just one layer. It's looking really nice. Now at this point, I'm going to pull it back from the griddle a little bit. I need to clear some space on the griddle. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this cheese, and this cheese is going to go right onto the griddle. A single layer of the cheese right on the griddle. And I'm going to take these eggs now and I'm going to put them over the cheese. I know it looks like I'm making a mess here, but this is like honestly one of my very favorite breakfasts of all time, and this is going to be absolutely delicious. All right, so now we're gonna. So you could see it was even a little bit hard for me to like try to talk while I was doing that because it's pretty sensitive on the timing. You don't want to overcook the eggs. You don't want to undercook things. This point, it's going to be a little bit more stable. So what's happening now? The cheese is the bottom layer, and it's going to get crispy and crunchy and golden brown. It's going to be amazing. It's insulating the eggs a little bit now, so you don't have to worry as much now about the eggs overcooking. And we're just going to give this a minute or two here to let that cheese get to the right spot. You see I held a little bit of my salsa aside because we're going to have a little bit of fresh salsa on this. And we're almost there. This is just about. These are just some veggies from the garden that I had some new potatoes and peppers and some green beans, and it's August, it's the end of August, so we're just trying to enjoy all these beautiful flavors. But this is a really yummy dish even in the wintertime without all those fresh vegetables. So it's getting there, it's not quite done. I used a cheddar cheese here. You could use pre-shredded cheddar would be fine, or pre-shredded cheese, even not cheddar, would be fine here. You need to have something that's going to melt and then create that like crispy layer. And I think we're just about there. Now, to get this off, I'm going to cut it down the middle. The reason I'm doing that is my spatula is like sort of small, and if I try to pick up the whole thing at once, it just won't work. So what I want to do now with my spatula is I want to get under this, and I'm going to flip this over onto the serving tray so that the cheese that was on the bottom layer is now becomes a bit of the top layer. So just sort of flipping that over. And you have this yummy, delicious mess of eggs and salsa. It's like a little bit spicy, but not too spicy. And then you've got the crunchy cheese layer on the top. Let's see how this one comes out. All right, that looks awesome. So you can see that. And it smells so good right now. And like I said, this is good with any kind of pico de gallo. You can even use those pretty awful, like, pre-made salsas at the grocery store. But this recipe is okay with them. That said, it's going to taste way better with these tomatoes. Like, this is a really nice time of year to make these. So that's really quick. A really quick Migas instruction. And like I said, this recipe is from a style of Migas made in Austin, Texas. They might make Migas like this other places too, I'm not sure. I went to a few Migas places when I was there. Lucia recommended, and the one that she said would be best really was the best. And they were serving this on like a plate with some refried beans, and it was just so good. It's like one of those things, you eat it, you're dreaming about it, and then you try and figure out how to replicate it. And when I was there, I was like, I had the foresight to go and watch them making it, and that's where I saw this idea of putting the cheese on the griddle and folding the eggs onto it, which is not something I probably would have thought of on my own, but it works really, really beautifully. This is going to be a really yummy breakfast. I hope you guys enjoy that, and hope some of you make Migas at home.